And we're back with another episode of Before You Buy. That show will give you some straight-up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing, but today we're talking about Fallout 76 Wastelanders. Yeah, we're talking about the game again. When it makes sense, as you guys have known with a couple of our videos, we're trying to revisit some controversial games when they get a bit of a substantial content update or much hyped overhaul to try to, give these games a second chance. When I did the original Before You Buy video for Fallout 76 in November 2018, I wasn't a fan of the game. I said that you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it, and I really just didn't go back to it. The game maintained a community, though. People definitely did enjoy it. There were people out there, and they held on for more. And now, with this new stuff much later down the line, the game itself is substantially better. I'll admit it. There's some cool stuff here. But I think it's still gonna be something you either jump in and get hooked on, or you're just not going to be into it at all, and you're not going to like it. But at the very least, now it's more worth a try, because at least there's a better chance you might like it, and it's no longer a dumpster fire. The way we're looking at it over here, we already got burned when we spent $60 on this game. Might as well go back, since it's in our library, and see if, we're getting a better experience for the money we already spent. Can't hurt, right? Just focusing on the game here and what's added, and not the Bethesda controversy over the past few years, just the game itself. Let's jump in. Wastelanders is a free update that adds a bunch of stuff, along with some incremental things and quality of life improvements here and there that have been added since launch. The footage captured here, though, is the PC version. The biggest and most talked about addition is NPCs. Actual human and humanoid non-playable AI characters inhabiting the world that you can directly engage with. On launch, Fallout 76 took the sandbox approach and was basically devoid of life. It was the biggest turnoff for a lot of traditional Fallout fans. It felt like a vague framework last time around. So yeah, a big surprise here. Now having NPCs does make a hell of a difference. Right from the get-go, areas and main pathways will occasionally have a lone survivor strolling by. Buildings which were otherwise empty might have a random person in it, even if they don't have much to say. It's still all really helps the world. The ones that do have stuff to say are actually fairly interesting. Not huge scale stuff, but interesting stories. New quest lines and updates to old ones are actually enough to keep you intrigued and playing and exploring as they should. The way the dialogue and NPC stuff looks, the way it flows, actually feels more like Fallout 3 and New Vegas in a weird way. To some, that might sound like it feels old, but for other Fallout fans, that might be exactly what they want to hear. I don't know. But otherwise, it's a good old-fashioned RPG dialogue system with plenty of RPG skill checks that work with your special system attributes. You're going to be charming your way through conversations. You're going to be threatening your way. You're going to be using your intelligence. That good stuff. Not only that, it seems to all work pretty well and integrate with later game players. For example, in the main story, becoming an Enclave General, and then being able to use it to pass a skill check in Wastelanders stuff. That's pretty nice. I really want to emphasize the work they put in here. The dialogue systems are good. I'm always a sucker for a good RPG dialogue system. They even fleshed it out on existing things like robots and the talking terminals and stuff that had quests in the base game. Now you can use these new dialogue systems with them. That stuff is impressive. In fact, they really cleaned up the onboarding stuff for new players, giving you a brand new quest line pretty much immediately where you can talk to real people, focusing around a survivor scavenger bar called the Wayward, operated by these colorful characters like Duchess and her ghoul pal Mordecai. Side note, Mordecai is voiced by Jason Mewes, Jay from Jay and Silent Bob fame. And I was genuinely surprised. I want to give him a shout out here. He doesn't need it, but he did a really fantastic job. I wanted more of him, You're also able to get companions, and they can hang around your camp. Bethesda promises a bunch of stuff later down the line, like being able to customize them more. They come with their own quest lines and dialogue and everything full on. But, it's nice to have them around to defend your camp, but we could really use, actually being able to bring them out in the wild with you. That's not a thing yet. That's kind of a bummer. I will say, though, I have seen a lot of weird-looking NPCs and some major weirdness with them. Not looking at the camera, walking in front of my face, sliding towards stuff, clipping. Weird glitches and animation problems I had hoped the game would have solved by now. It's really distracting sometimes and kind of takes away from the excitement of NPCs when they're kind of junky sometimes. Now, I will say, despite that, the game is very much still in all around way better shape than when it launched. I've had no catastrophic frame drops like I used to. The game hasn't crashed. Not a lot of glitches or falling through the map. They've upgraded the graphics too with God rays, more lighting, tweaked the day and night cycle. Overall, it's much, much better now, and it looks pretty good sometimes, especially like the actual environments themselves. With more events going on, NPCs walking around, Wastelanders missions, new buildings, the completely new factions in the areas they hang out in, and the map dotted with random camps of these faction members, populated areas. It's all really way more interesting to explore this West Virginia now, where I was kind of bored with the base game. Now it's a bit more interesting, and that's good because it was a waste when the game launched. This map is actually really cluttered with interesting like lore, enemy types, and stuff like that. And thankfully now it feels less like lonely, empty Foundation. And pretty good for people who like Fallout exploration. Oh, and earlier I mentioned customization. So jumping into Wastelanders, you get access to, tons more stuff the game has collected to build up your own camp. I said it last time, but the building and the crafting systems in this game are way more crucial to the core game loop than Fallout 4's, but I appreciate it for that, and I think there's a lot of fun to be had there. With all the stuff the game has now, you can create straight up beautiful houses or other weird kinds of creations. Shout out to our friend here, Jimmy Champagne, who showed us around his really cool place. Like, look at this. And making stuff like this is half the fun. Quality of life improvements as well are great. Little tweaks to UI and flow help finally make the game into a fully playable thing that it sorely kind of needed to be for a long time. I haven't been able to see everything yet, though, I got to admit, because a lot of stuff is added for higher level players. There's a new in-game currency, gold bullion, you can get and use for special stuff by getting treasury notes for doing new Wastelanders daily quests that are also added. The factions that I've seen so far are pretty cool and interesting, and it's great that there's actually factions here now, and how they actually explain them. And like the whole faction reputation system is along for the ride too. And enemy types were already interesting, but they've added a couple new weirder creatures like floaters and a Wendigo colossus that will hang out near nuked areas. Basically, it feels more like a full real Fallout game, but a lot of the content emphasis is still based around online play once you get further in. New public events and an emphasis on daily quests definitely seem to give people who play with friends a lot to have fun and engage with. Even that could use some adjusting, though, and they're working on it. Level balancing feels like it's still an issue, especially when you're around differently leveled players. Sometimes it can be a big problem. But Bethesda seems to eventually be aiming for like the one world thing like Elder Scrolls Online did to great effect. That stuff, these tweaks, hopefully come sooner rather than later. Long story short, the game is better now. It has more and feels more like a traditional Fallout experience. Solo players will have more to do, but I think overall, it's still very much an online game. Players that have stuck with it have a lot more to enjoy here. And to quote our pal Jimmy, the game basically went from, man, I hope they fix this, to, man, I can't wait to see how they build on this now. So for fans, it's great. For casual people like me, or maybe people that just outright didn't really like the game, it does have more to play through, but it still doesn't feel as long-term meaningful or engaging as something like Fallout 3 or New Vegas or even other comparable RPGs. It's hard to make a full judgment on it. I'm not suddenly a Fallout 76 diehard fan overnight, but I can see they put the work in to make it a better experience for the people that stuck around. I'm also not the biggest online player, so that's where my personal preferences come in. This thing, it still has a shop to spend real money in. It's still very online type game, but it's not a dumpster fire anymore. I'm excited for fans of the game who have stuck around with it to have all of this now. And plus, you can play it on Steam, which is nice. Really, Fallout 76 with the Wastelanders update is interesting, I'm happy I jumped back in just to see how it's changed and how much cooler it is, and I do enjoy West Virginia. But, I don't know. I don't think the game is still totally for me. That's, of course, my personal opinion. This is a before you buy. You know how this goes. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion and stuff like that. So now I want to hear yours down in the comments. If you just outright hate Fallout 76 and Bethesda or whatever, you're probably coming here to comment anyway. But let's be reasonable here. If you're a fan who stuck with Fallout 76, how are you feeling about it now? And if you are someone like me who tried it, didn't like it, and then popped back in, I want to know what you're thinking now. Some people are very impressed. Some people are still just kind of, okay. whoever you are, let's talk about Fallout 76 Wastelanders down in the comments. Also, once again, shout out to our friend Jimmy Champagne. He's a YouTuber friend. Thanks to him for showing me around, doing quests with me and stuff. His channel's linked in the description below. But I gotta say, man, if you enjoyed this video, maybe learned a new thing or two about the game, clicking the like button does help us out. We really appreciate that. And if you're new, consider subscribing, maybe hitting that notification bell, because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.